Today is Wargame Wednesday, so come on in, pull up a chair. The Daily Dope is in the air. Howdy, 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 gang. Yes, I'm Jeff McAleer, back once again as your host here at The Daily Dope, presented by thegaminggang.com. Very, very strange beginning to the night here. I tried streaming twice, and all of a sudden it was just showing all these drop frames. It was like 75% drop frames. So that was a mess. So if you were tuning in right at 7 o'clock, which is when I started the stream, you'll have noticed that it was like, what the hell is going on? So I think what was going on was NVIDIA, for my video card, was like downloading a new driver without, asking me first. It drives me up the wall how these companies will just override what you're looking to do. Hey, Ghost World's chiming in. No, technically, you are not late, Ghost. Not at all. So yeah, it was like, what did I do? Like 3 starts? And of course, what I have to do, if there's a problem, I need to wait a few minutes so that YouTube starts the rendering process of that video. So it shows up in my video dashboard, because then I can delete it. Otherwise, if I don't, when I start streaming again, it just takes that piece and adds it into the video to start off. And I learned my lesson on that once already. So today is Wednesday, February 13th. Tomorrow is Valentine's Day. Oh boy. I guess today is Gallons Times Day. So women are supposed to hang out with their female friends. Okay. Whatever. Just float somebody's boat. But it is also episode 246 of the Daily Dope. It is Wednesday. It is Wargame Wednesday. So I am actually going to do a couple of things tonight. So I am going to review AuZtralia, which is from Stronghold Games and Stronghold Games. I think Stronghold Games is Martin Wallace's company. This is kind of a conflict simulation game. There is conflict in it, I will give you that much. It is probably as close to a war game as you are going to find from Stronghold Games. So I'm going to be reviewing that, do a little bit of how to play. And I am also going to do a first look at Mark H. Walker's Platoon Commander, Korea 1950. This is from Tiny Battle Publishing. We will be taking a peek at this after my review. All right, so Ghost says, busy doing work. Yeah, of course, yeah. Let me install updates. I have the worst timing on that with your work laptop. Yes, on this desktop that I built that's downstairs, same kind of thing. Windows will decide, I know you've told me not to do any updates between these hours, but I don't care what you're telling me. I'm doing it now. It'll pop up and be like, oh, hey, you need to restart. It's like, you are not supposed to be updating at this point. Anywho, all right, but so no news tonight. No news tonight. Although I do want to point out, it is Wednesday. It's Wargame Wednesday, so that means Wargame Wednesdays, not War Games Wednesdays, are sponsored by Tiny Battle Publishing, yes, as well as Flying Pig Games. Both companies are operated by the mastermind Mark H. Walker, who just happens to be my friend as well. You may have seen that I got a slew of Tiny Battle Publishing titles that we're going to be looking at. There are more Tiny Battle Publishing titles that are on the horizon. So if you like big, meaty box games, you want to go to Flying Pig Games. If you like smaller footprint, easily transportable games, but with just as much action in them, then definitely check out Tiny Battle Publishing. I will mention, let me grab this. We will be looking at Ghost Front for old school tactical, which is Battle of the Bulge. It's Belgium, 1944. We're going to be looking at that pretty soon. Not next week. Next week, I will be doing a review of Space Corps from GMT Games. Very, very interesting. Before I jump into AuZtralia, I do want to point out there's a lot going on. Got a lot heading my way. I got a bunch of role-playing game stuff coming. So AuZtralia, I believe that's how you pronounce the company's name. They're famous for their Cyberpunk 2020, Castle Falkenstein. Was it Teenagers from Outer Space? And of course, they just did The Witcher RPG. That's pretty new. They're sending me all of those to take a look at. So they'll be coming in the mail. Got some stuff coming from Stronghold Games, including The Boldest that we were talking about yesterday on the news section, news portion of the show. So yeah, lots of stuff in transit at the moment. Do want to point out, this is a live stream. Ghost World can attest to that. So if you are watching on YouTube, by all means, if you want to say hello or you have a question or you might want to learn something more about AuZtralia or for Korea 1950, by all means, chime in. I will respond. Chat is not on screen. It's one of the ways that I keep some of these stranger commenters at bay. But I do want to point out, I do pay attention to the chat. So don't be shy, chime in. I'm not the only loudmouth here. No, obviously I'm the biggest loudmouth here, but amazingly enough, Ghost, there were people watching last night. Because I gotta be honest, I mean, usually there's only maybe a handful of people, one or two people, who chime in chat. Every once in a while, we'll get a good chat going. But Ghost and I were kind of chatting back and forth a little bit as we were doing the show last night. And I finished up and I'm thinking, oh yeah, I guess GW is the only person who was watching the show. And yeah, right away I go take a look to see, before he even pops up in my video manager, before it just starts showing that the show's rendering, I took a peek and I'm like, what do you mean there were 10 people watching live? It's like, seriously? Really? I was like, there were 10 people watching live? And there was only one person talking. So yeah, don't be shy. I know a lot of people kind of pop in and out of the show too as well. So if you do like the video, by all means, please give it a thumbs up. I do notice there are some people who watch the stream. They comment on the shows all the time. And, they're positive comments. They're not, suck. They don't do a little thumbs up. So by all means, if you like the video, give it a thumbs up. If you don't, give it a thumbs down. That's how it works. But if you do watch some videos that are on the Gaming Gang channel and you like those, please subscribe. Be sure to ring the bell. That way you'll be notified not only when there's a new video available, but also when the stream goes live. And I keep asking, please tell your friends. You tell one person, hey. And by all means, tell them to check out thegaminggang.com because there's a lot of stuff going on that is not on the show. It is not on the Daily Dope. Usually, I have a new correspondent who's working with us. She's doing written reviews, so I believe we've got 3 or 4 of hers up already, with more on the way. That's not something that's on the Daily Dope. Some news pieces don't make it on either. So, all right. So what we're going to do here is I am going to switch cameras. Now, I do want to point out that AuZtralia is from Untitled Games and Stronghold Games. Designed by Martin Wallace. It has artwork provided by James Comer. Game is for 1 to 4 players, ages 13 and up. Plays in about a half hour to 2 hours. I have yet to play any of this where it played in 30 minutes. But I do. Oh, so Ghost says, love your comics section on the website. Yeah, we try to share what's going on with comics every week. My brother's in charge of that. He's I'm also a comic fan, but if he's gonna get passes to go to like San Diego Comic-Con and Gen Con and all this other stuff, he's got to do a little bit of work. So he does the comic stuff. Anyway, as I was saying, AuZtralia, on the box, it tells you 30 minutes to 120 minutes, maybe 30 minutes if you're playing solitaire. I have not had a game where it was finished up in a half hour. It does carry an MSRP of $69.95. This did come out just last year, too. So this is pretty recent. This is a pretty recent release. Although I know there was a lot of coverage of AuZtralia pre-release. And I think Martin Wallace was sending out like prototypes or like betas to various people. So let's switch over to the other camera here. This will take up room on your table. So each of the players are going to have their own player board. And I will show that off in just a little bit. You've got the game board itself. I'm getting most of the game board in. All that's really kind of getting cut off is the time track up here is just a wee bit cut off. And then, of course, the time track will run down along the bottom here. Then I've got some counters for the various different military units. So, in essence, let me grab a quick sip here. And because I am tackling 2 games tonight, I am not going to do like a full playthrough or anything like that. Just going to kind of give you an overview, and then I'm going to talk about what I think of AuZtralia. And for some reason, this is a little crooked, so let's kind of straighten this out. All right, and of course, my mug is kind of cutting off a little bit. Just a wee bit here, so get this out of the way. Okay, so anyway, so AuZtralia is kind of a sequel to A Study in Emerald, which was based on the Neil Gaiman, well, it's more a novella than it is a short story, whereas the Cthulhu Mythos old ones actually were still ruling over humanity up into the Victorian Age, into the Gaslight era. And Neil Gaiman's story, which is an excellent story, you should really check it out, is in essence Sherlock Holmes helps to overthrow our Mythos overlords. So anyway, I have never played Study in Emerald, which this is the kind of sequel to. I do understand that's more European. I believe it's kind of Victorian age. Well, now we jump forward because for the most part, Cthulhu and his minions have been defeated and have kind of disappeared. And because there has been no World War I, or history is a lot different as far as how this game world is. There hasn't been a World War I. There hasn't really been the emigration to Australia. Australia is still effectively, what was it termed as? Terra Australis? Something along those lines. In fact, I seem to recall there was a Call of Cthulhu setting book, which I could have swore is like something Terra Australis, which is basically, just kind of undiscovered. So, that is kind of the premise. What's happening here is you've got these different factions. It's the players. It's all the players. You've got the different factions. The different factions are basically looking to kind of colonize Australia. They're looking to make their money in Australia, but there's also kind of rumors that it's got a bit of a, maybe there's still some of the Mythos creatures and things like that lurking. Oh wow, that's a random tie-in. I do enjoy Gaiman though. Yeah, Neil Gaiman's great. Neil Gaiman seems like he would be so cool to interview. Seems like he's supposed to be very nice. He's actually very cool on Twitter. And the thing is, I mean, it seems like Neil Gaiman knows something about everything. I mean, it's like, what, he's like such a super well-rounded individual. But yes, Neil Gaiman was, I think he still is, pretty big fan of Lovecraft. So, all right. So anyway, so let's start looking at the board here. So as I mentioned, up top, kind of cut off, is the little time track that we've got. So this is kind of an interesting aspect to this game, because a big commodity of this game that you got to be very careful with is time. And time is actually kind of a resource in this game. So this is the time track. This purple disc over here actually represents when the Mythos creatures will activate. So I've got this kind of set up basically for a 3-player game. I'm not going to play out a bunch of stuff with a 3-player game. But once Cthulhu effectively activates, you've got like a 4th player, kind of a non-player force. There's a bit of an AI to this as far as what's going on with the players. This is not necessarily a cooperative game. There are options for more of a fully co-op sort of environment. The players don't necessarily, they're not going to battle each other or anything like that, but they are looking to be the player who ends up with the most victory points, and there are different ways for you to score victory points, and I'll kind of mention that as well. But let's kind of tour this board a little bit. So one of the first things that you're going to do is you're going to actually kind of seed the board. So you see we've got these black, and I got to point out, my camera is way, way, way up there. So I'm actually going to have to hop up and kind of zoom in when I start looking at Korea 1950. So anyway, so we've got these little black, gems here. So these are coal. Just going to pop those back. It's not going to matter where I put them back. We've got gold. Got gold there. We have, this is iron. It's iron there. And this is phosphate. And phosphate actually is not really a resource. Phosphate is just simply victory points at the end of the game. So Ghost says his sister went and saw Neil Gaiman at Columbia. Yeah. He also, didn't Neil Gaiman read... didn't he read Dickens? Didn't he read A Christmas Carol at the New York Library or something? It was supposed to be amazing. There was a video of him doing that. Yeah, Neil Gaiman seems very, very cool. In fact, I gotta be honest, I don't really think anybody talks about how A Study in Emerald, the game, draws inspiration from Neil Gaiman's story. I think a lot of people just think, oh, Martin Wallace came up with this. So, yes, phosphate is victory points. I don't know. I don't know what the reasoning is behind that. It just happens to be another thing that's on the board here. So what you're going to end up doing is you're going to, along the board, we have various different, kind of like pyramid icons. We've got one right here. Then we also have these counters here, which are for seeding the board. And I want to say, I believe there's like 13 or 14 of these. So you're not going to actually use every single one. There's going to be some left over. And what you do is you actually randomly place, face down, these on the various different pyramid symbols. So none of this is out here yet. These tiles, none of this, these counters, none of this is out there. So what you'll end up doing is you're going to flip it over, and when you look, it's going to show you, oh, okay, so this is what I'm going to put on these hexes around me. So the hex that this was in is going to get a Mythos creature tile. So this is actually kind of a a bad tile. I mean, it's packed with stuff. You got 4 Mythos creatures, and you've got gold, you've got coal, and you've got phosphate. So, actually, that's pretty valuable, but a lot of potential monsters that you're going to have to battle to get to it. So what you're going to do is you're just going to reveal those, and then you're going to go around the board and you're going to seed it. The hexes are numbered, except for the coastal and hills on this board here. Do want to point out that this is a dual-sided board. So this board is Eastern Australia. The other board is Western Australia. There's some little bit different rules for the Western side as well. I kind of look at the Western side maybe a little more as an advanced game, although there's not a ton of difference. There's just a few things that when you're doing the Eastern board you have to look at, where you can't have any Mythos creatures in the hills or coastline, and you can't have any resources in the coastline. And you can see that, to make it easier for you, it is marked that these are coastline because they have an anchor. All right, so you're going to seed the board. Everybody's going to get, and I'm going to have to hop up and show this off, everyone's going to get a player board. So let me zoom in. There really isn't anything else on the board that I need to show off, except for the fact that each of the players is going to have a port. They're going to choose where they're going to place their port, and they have to do that. They cannot have a port within 2 hexes of another player, and they're going to actually build out from their ports. So I'm going to show you what these counters are as well. So yeah, I can actually kind of zoom in. Another thing, we've got personalities that can be hired that are along the board here. You'll always have 5 of them available to you. Kind of interesting little side item here is that the characters who are at the end, the 2 characters at the end, tend to have they're susceptible to assassination by the Mythos forces once the Mythos forces do actually activate. All right, so what I'm going to do here is I'm going to actually zoom in. That's a little too much. There we go. That should. I'm going to zoom in a little bit, and this way I can kind of show you what's going on and get a little closer look. So each of the players is going to get their player board. So, and I'm going to throw my reading specs on. So I'm just going to, as an example, I'm going to just kind of show off what, like, the red player. I usually play as red. Okay, so when we take a look at the board here, everybody gets actions. And this has an interesting kind of turn mechanic to it, where that time track, that it's not like, okay, well, it's my turn, then Cameron's turn, then Greg's turn, anything. It starts off where you're going to take your actions, you're going to actually move on the time track, and then whoever is the furthest back on the time track will actually be able to, they go next. So what happens is that there's really no, well, you can only do so much and then you're done. It's, you can kind of do whatever you want, although you're never going to be able to run away with just doing tons and tons of things in your turn. But it's kind of cool where it's sort of like, well, you can do whatever you need to do, and then you're basically looking at the next person who's the furthest back on the time track is going to once again take another turn. And it is possible it could really actually be you. Or as you're playing along and the Cthulhu minions, the forces of the Lovecraftian forces activate, it could be their turn to do stuff. So the actions that we have, We have building railroads. Yes, I swear it's a Martin Wallace design. It seems as if it's just gotta have railways. In fact, if someone approached Martin Wallace and said, "Hey, Martin, we'd like you to make a game about the Sistine Chapel," I guarantee he would say, "Well, I need to put rails in it." So this is not a railroad game, though. That's something very, very important to point out. It's not a railroad game. There are railways in it, but all they really kind of do is determine on where you can actually do things. So we've got laying rail tracks. We've got mining. We have hiring personalities. We have hiring military units. We have building farms. We've got importing and exporting. Because if you notice, we've got like gold, we've got coal, we've got the iron over here. Well, once that gets mined, that's gone. It's not like something that constantly like generates those materials, those resources to everybody as you're playing. So whoever mines this coal gets this coal. Yes, Ticket to Ride Cthulhu Edition. Thank God we have not seen something like that yet. I mean, yes, I understand Lovecraft stuff is all pretty much public domain, but please. But I have to admit, if you put a game out that's got, you know, a Lovecraft vibe to it, I come running. I may not necessarily like it, but I come running. Right, so we can also use our military to attack. We can also get our cubes back. I'll show you what that means. This is where you actually have your forces that you have committed to battle. This is where you're going to actually keep your cubes. And then this is your warehouse where you're going to keep your resources. So for an example, each player is going to start off with 2 iron, 2 coal, 4 gold. Now, anytime you see something that shows like this hexagon, that means that stands for victory points. So at the end of the game, when everybody's tallying up the victory points, including the Mythos side, if you have phosphorus, gold +3. So the phosphorus is worth the 3 victory points at the end of the game. You'll have the barracks down here. This is where you keep your military units before you commit them to battle. We have sanity here. We've got sanity markers. Where did they go? I had them out here. Oh, come on. There are loads and loads of counters and bags and things separated out. Where in the world did I have them? All right, well, trust me, you get these these circular counters. Wait, here they are. They're right there. So you're going to get 3 points of sanity to start off each of your battles as well. You lose sanity while you fight, and as long as you have some sanity, you're okay. Once you have no sanity, if you're still fighting in the battle, yeah, you're pretty likely going to lose that battle. Okay, so effectively what you're going to do is everything's going to look like this. When you start off, you're going to have all your cubes here. And then when it's your turn, it's when you'll say, okay, so let's say I'm the first player. So when you seed the board, everybody's going to get a chance to take a look at the board and determine where are they going to put their port. As long as they're within a coastal hex, and as long as they're not within 2 hexes of another player's port, they're fine. So what you're going to look to do is you're going to try to see, okay, so where are the best resources that I can get to, and I can get to them fairly quick. without having to go through a whole lot of trouble. And it's basically, you know, you're going to kind of look around on the board before you place your port. So let's say, as an example, it's my turn. I'm the first player. So here's my port. I'm the red player. There's my port. It's located here. I've got iron right up here. So I'm like, okay, well, let's see. So as I mentioned, there are railways. So a bunch of my red counters and tokens. So one action I can perform, which will cost me a coal and an iron, is to build 2 pieces of rail. 2 rail connections, effectively like so. Rail connections are from hex side to hex side, like so. They do not run like this. They run from hex to hex. So they cross the hex sides, just like that. So what I could do here is, okay, I could say, well, let's see. These are hills. This is the coastline. This is the outback. This is the coastline, outback, and hills. So it actually will cost the coal and the iron in order to build into the hills. It also costs you that to build out of the hills. So if the hill counter is in any way involved in your rail building, you're going to pay, and you're going to spend the extra time. So that would move my time token, my disc on the time track, 3, because that's what these represent. That's the amount of time. So that would be 3. So I would actually cash these in. I would give these into the bank, into the supply, and I'm able to lay my 2 rail lines. So what that would mean now is, hey, I could mine this and get the 3 iron, and in order to do that, it's going to cost me 1 time. So when I do these things, I have to go this. All right, so I built my tracks. Boom. I'm just putting that down there. Move this over a little bit. I'm in a mine. Okay, great. Do that. And I get these. Sweet. Yay. Thanks. So I may at some point have to import export in order to get gold, or because the random way that the map is seeded, you may have very little gold. You may have very little iron. You may have very little coal available to you. It does happen. It doesn't happen a lot, but it does happen. So at least you do have the import export. So if you really are in dire need of iron or coal, you can get a piece of iron or coal from the supply. So anyway, so what'll happen is you can continue doing stuff as long as you've got enough gold or iron or coal to do whatever you want. Now, for an example, maybe I want to, you know what? I'm going to hire one of these personalities, because these personalities may give you a special bonus. They may do something for you right now. They could have a one-time effect for you, where it's basically, okay, so you use their special ability and then that's it. They may have some sort of a function at the end of the game where they give you more victory points. So you want to have personalities as part of your crew, basically part of your team, as well as military units too. And of course, whenever somebody buys a personality, there's 5 that are showing. You're going to replace them from the personality deck. There are personalities, there are special cards that you use for solitaire, so you can play this solitaire. There are cards that are available as for a 2-player game, because it plays a little differently with the with 2 players. You want to try to get it 3 or 4 players to really get the most out of the game. But like I said, once again, you're not fighting each other. You're fighting the forces of evil, but you're looking to actually get the most victory points out of it, you know, in the end. Okay, so for an example, let's say I wanted to buy a personality. Okay, so personality cost me a gold. So I'm going to pay a gold to get the personality. Boom. Paid for that. Now I've got Juliet Verne. If you have an airship present in combat, inflict 1 damage automatically once per combat. So she becomes part of my team. So I would put her near my board. And I would once again I'd move my time one on the time track. Maybe I want to buy a military unit. So if you look at the military units, you can only purchase 1 military unit at a time. So once again I had done that. There's my cube. Let's say okay, well I got money. I'm going to buy some infantry. Now, the only exception to the buying 1 unit at a time is infantry. You can purchase 2 infantry at once. So I go, okay, I'm going to buy 2 infantry, and I'm going to, of course, assign them to the barracks. And of course, now I have to move the time even more. Now it's getting to the point where, well, you know, I don't have a whole lot of stuff. I mean, yeah, I might decide, hey, you know, I want to hold off before I do anything else, because what will eventually happen is, as you get these cubes showing what you've done, if you want to do the same thing that you already have a cube in, then you actually have to pay extra. So you have to pay 1 gold for each cube that's in there. So it gets expensive to repeat certain things. Now, keeping in mind, you can repeat the process of laying track, and you can repeat the process of mining, because there are 2 spots, and you can easily do these. All right, so let's say I've finished my turn up, and now, you know, the time has moved along. Now the other players are doing their turns, and comes back around to me. Well, even though it's still my turn, and it's a new turn, I have to actually get rid of these cubes, and that is this action here. This is basically recovering your cubes. You can do that. You can also attack. So let's talk a little bit about some of the other things that you can do that are not like combat related. So you can also have farms. So you can decide to drop a farm. Now, in order to do so, you have to be building it in a hex that you have railroad access into. Now, I do want to point out that if you ever have any of the Mythos creatures in a hex, because they will move around once they activate, in a hex with your rail line, that basically blocks that off. You can't trace a line any further to kind of occupy that. Now, they won't necessarily tear up your tracks, but they will blight your farms. So, what happens when you have a farm, you're going to see each of these hexes have, for an example, cattle. We've got corn. So, right here we've got corn, which, okay, maybe I'm wrong. I didn't think Australia really had a lot of corn crops. Like I said, maybe I'm wrong, but I could have swore that they don't raise corn in Australia, or if they do it, you know, it very small amounts. So I don't know. I just thought it was kind of weird. I would have thought it would be like grains of some sort, but I don't know. Maybe I'm wrong, but I thought that was kind of weird. But we do have sheep and we do have cattle. So what you can do is, as an action, you can create a farm and you'll get a gold for doing so. Now, you get the gold. Corn may not be native to Australia, just kangaroos. Hey, that's possible. We know kangaroos are there. So what you do is, when you build a farm, you're just going to match what it says here. You're going to get a gold, and that'll be it. You will not actually get stuff from this farm. It's not like, oh, well, it's my turn, I'm going to get another gold or anything like that. The farm is actually worth victory points at the end of the game. Now, if the forces of the Mythos come down and enter this area, they will destroy your farm. They will basically blight that farm. Thus, you won't get any victory points from it. So, that's something else you can do. You can build farms. For the most part, you're really prepping for the point when you're going to start battling with the Cthulhu minions. Now, there are great old ones in this, but it's mainly Cthulhu. So, which actually I should say he's the only great old one. So we're gonna see. I'm just gonna kind of mess around with this board here a little bit. So we see that we've got these different numbers. We've got 1, 2, and 3. So the hexes will also show 1, 2, and 3. So when we're seeding the board, remember with these tiles here, when we're seeding the board, if it shows that there's a Mythos counter that's supposed to go there, we determine, oh, okay, so that's a 1. All right, so a 1's going to go there. Further up to the top of the board, up into the corner, once you've kind of gotten further into the map, then you're going to start running into the 3s. The 3s are way up top. Then you'll see the 2s. So it's kind of, there's a progression, right? So it's 1, 2, 3. And what'll happen is you'll see that we have these cards that we'll end up drawing once the Mythos creatures do activate, which will maybe, because everything doesn't just activate at all one time. We just flip all these things over. We have to go and send our expeditionary forces over to find out, okay, so what is this thing? We can't build farms or mine for resources. Like for an example, we've got gold up here, but we would have to deal with whatever's under this tile first, what's on this counter first, before we can do anything with that. So, so what'll happen is we may get cards that'll say, oh, activate, basically flip over the Mythos creature in the lowest numbered hex. And you'll notice these hexes are all numbered. So for an example, it's like 2, 3, 4. So we're gonna start activating the creature, the Mythos creatures and stuff like that. Kind of the easier, then kind of the middle, and then the toughest. It's effectively how it goes. Now, we could get to the point where we're sitting there and we're playing, and it says, oh, reveal the hidden minion in the lowest hex. Well, the lowest hex happens to have like a 2 in it. That's a possibility that could happen. All right, so let's show off some of these. So this is a zombie, which okay, so I'm pretty well versed in Lovecraft stories. Only thing we could actually even kind of consider as zombies would be Herbert West's Reanimated Corpses, and I don't know if I'd call them zombies. So I'm a little surprised there's zombies in this, but there are zombies. They tend to be a little weaker, although there are zombies mixed through all 3 tiers. So we got a tougher one. That's a Migo there. That's a tougher Migo. We've got a Shoggoth. Shoggoths are also pretty tough. There's let's see. Let's find out. So sometimes we've got temples. Now this temple actually has a Migo on it, a Migo defending it. We've got, that's a Shoggoth. Come on. Where are you guys? There we go. We have loyalists, so basically cultists. Yeah, see, like Ghost said, well, maybe they're cultists. No, these are the cultists. So these are the worshippers. And then we also have just temples. Oh, here's Cthulhu. Dun dun dun. All right. Now the other thing too is there we go. There's a temple. An idea of the temple. And once again, there are more of these counters than you actually need. So you're not always going to be encountering the same exact enemies, which is cool. There's tons of replayability built into this, from how you seed the map to the various decks of cards you're going to utilize to the various different Mythos creatures as well. So, in essence, what this shows on the left, that's going to be how many victory points this temple is worth to defeat. And on the right is how many points of damage you have to lay on it in order to destroy it. So, for example, these loyalists are worth 3 victory points, take 5 damage to defeat. So what you'll eventually end up doing is you're going to start battling with these minions, and to do so, you're going to actually assign your expeditionary force. So your expeditionary force, what you're going to do, say, so for an example, let's say, oh, well, just as an example, right? So I'm going to put that Migo right over it. Well, let's do it here. So, let's say I've got an army like so. So what you can do is, now the rules aren't real long. The rules are actually fairly easy to understand. But you're gonna have, we also have a little player aid, but it'll say, okay, here's the effectiveness of the units. So if I'm going after a Migo right here, infantry's good, artillery's good. We have an armored train that would be available to us. We have artillery that can be available to us. And then we have the airship, which is available to us. So what we would maybe want to do is say, okay, I'm going to put, this is my expeditionary force that I'm sending. Okay, so you're gonna just put them here. And what you need to look at now with your hexes, you know, on the enemies, that's showing how many victory points they're worth. Now what this means here, these ones basically mean that you can actually attack anything that's within a hex of the end of your rail line. The end of your rail line. So for an example, your armored train cannot go any further than the hex that's at the end of your rail line. So in essence, what your infantry and your artillery can do is you can actually move them by train, and then they can move close by. Now, the armored car, the airship, those have more movement. The airship is 4, and the armored car is 2. There are no tanks. There are no tanks. Like I said, World War I really didn't take place. So what you end up doing is you just kind of just mark. There's a, you can either use this pawn, or you can. There's also a little kind of like Cthulhu counter that you can use, and you're just going to mark your combat. And then what you're going to end up doing is, there's no dice, but there is a deck. There's this deck of cards here that you're going to take a look, and there's a push your luck element to this. Now you do want to keep in mind there is a time element to this as well. It's going to cost you time. So when you're sending an army that's got artillery and infantry in it, you see it shows the 1. There's a 1 there. That's the time. Armored train is 0. Airship is 0 because those can move faster. So we would have moved our time 1 on the time track. So we've got these combat cards. So we're going to flip over the card. We're going to take a look. And we see, what we look here is, we're going to look to see, all right, so what is the enemy that we're fighting? Well, there's the Migo right in the center here. So if we look to the left, it's going to say, okay, so for every unit that we have of either the armored train or infantry, we are going to score 1 point of damage. So sweet. So we've got we've got 3 infantry. So we would be able to actually cause 3 points of damage, and you can just use your own cubes to track that. Now it'll show you, okay, so now what are we going to have that takes damage? Well, the Mego Fly, it's showing, well, if we had an airship, our airship would have taken a point of damage. Well, we didn't send our airship. We left the airship in the barracks because we already know it's just okay against the Mego. Yes, Ghost is saying, yeah, I'm getting the idea. Time is resource. Yes, because what'll happen is once you hit 53 on the track, and when you're playing like a 4-player game, you're starting at 6. You're not starting at 0 or 1. But once you pass by 53, you no longer get to take any turns, and it's basically a countdown for everybody to get past 53 so you can start tallying up your victory points. The other thing is if the Mythos creatures attack your port and they're able to destroy your port, basically you don't have anybody in your barracks to defend it, then you automatically start tallying up your victory points. So, trust me, if the minions get to your port and destroy it, you are not going to be coming out as the winner. But basically, so like if the minions end up with the highest victory point total, then everybody loses. All right, so we could say, for an example, we're like, okay, well, we laid 3 hits on the Mego. We didn't take any damage. Let's push our luck. Let's fight more. Let's keep battling this. We're going to flip the next card. Okay, it's going to show, oh, so now artillery. Artillery would score a hit. So we're like, okay, cool. Let's take another one. Oh, 4 hits. Now we look and we see a shield. So what this basically means is we can assign 1 point of damage to any of the units that we've got, unless one was an airship. Airship takes damage only when it says an airship takes damage. So now what we would have to do is we would have to actually take a purple cube, because the Cthulhu non-player has purple cubes, and we would have to mark a point of damage on one of our units. So we'd say, okay, well, we've got 4 hits. We only need 1 more hit to defeat this. We're in good shape. We've only taken 1 hit on our guys. Let's keep pushing our luck. Let's do it. Flip it over. Okay, here we see, well, an armored train would have scored a hit. Well, we don't have an armored train there, but it's telling us, uh-oh, it's going to cost us our sanity. So it's going to cost us a point of sanity for the battle. But we're going to still push our luck. Let's take another one. Now it's showing an armored car. Oh, but we'd lose a sanity. All right. Let's get to the point where, well, I don't know. How far do we want to push this? There we go. We flip it over. We get the infantry. The infantry would basically wipe out the Mego. These go back into our headquarters. And we now get to keep this counter. We get to keep this. It's worth 3 victory points at the end of the game because we defeated this. So, something that will happen too is we may, let's say maybe we had hit it with 1 and we were getting lousy cards coming up, and we're like, okay, oh, forget it. We're going to withdraw before we run out of sanity. That hit will remain. Now, any damage that we've received will be healed if we withdraw. If we withdraw at the end of the battle, then we can heal our units. They're basically back in the barracks, and they all heal. Now, as far as the Mythos creatures, the zombies do not actually carry over their damage. But it is possible that you could be sitting there and you'd be like, okay, so I did a point of damage, or I did 5 points of damage to Cthulhu, and Elliot did 5 points of damage to Cthulhu, and then Cameron finished them off. Well, you would all get victory points. There are various different tokens like this for the victory points. So what would happen is you would actually divvy up the victory points for that. So for an example, like the Mego here, if there were 3 of us who actually had fought this, then everybody who's got a cube on this for damage is going to get a little piece of that victory point pie. So that I thought was kind of cool. So it wasn't like, okay, so you're out there and you're like softening up these monsters and stuff, and then your forces are taking all this damage, and you're finally like, okay, man, I'm down to no sanity. If another sanity result comes up, then it's a defeat. And if it's a defeat, any unit that's got damage markers on it, they're lost. They're gone. You're not going to get to heal them in a defeat. So I like the fact where it's not like, well, I put in all the work, basically taking this down hit points, right? And then somebody else comes in, swoops in, does 1 point of damage to kill it, and they get all the glory. So I like that aspect of the game as well. So this is the combat deck, and I just recommend just kind of shuffle it up after every battle. Not that it says so in the rules. I don't recall it saying that in the rules, but that way you kind of get a nice randomness to it, as opposed to running through the whole deck. Now, another deck we've got is kind of like an event deck, and this we'll start taking cards from this when the Cthulhu minions actually activate. And every time, move this, because we're almost finished taking a look at this and talking about it. Move this so we can get that back into the shot. There we go. So we see we've got these illuminated circles. So it's basically every other time. So as I was talking about, let's do something like this. If people aren't exactly sure what I'm talking about with these time counters, these time tokens, and the time track. So let's say, for an example, I do the attack. Well, the attack cost me, that was 1 time. So I go here. So it's still my turn. I still get to do my stuff because we're all tied here. So I go, okay, so I did my attack. Now, all right, I'm gonna build rail. Okay, say I'm the blue player here. I'm gonna build rails. Okay, so now that's the end of my turn, because now I'm ahead of everybody else now. So what happens now is, oh, it's the red player's turn. So red player does their stuff. Okay, boop, 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 boop. Oh, yeah, I'm still, yeah, okay, so I did 2 things. Hey, now I can do something else. Boom. All right, now I gotta stop because I'm the furthest ahead, and we have not activated the minions yet. Now it would be, oh, well, the green player, they're the one furthest back, and they could go, wow, boom, all the way up to here. And then once this is reached, that means, okay, Cthulhu and the forces of evil have now been activated, and we are going to start looking at, every time this purple disc moves into an illuminated dial, we draw a card from the event deck. That's the deck where I was talking about how you could have reveal. I'll give you an example right here. Right there it says reveal the old one in the lowest numbered hex. That's exactly what I'm saying. So what all of these counters, they call them old ones, although they're not really old ones. So, and you'll see we've got 1, 2, 3. So as the game is continuing, as we're moving along on the time track, closing in on 53, we're going to end up revealing more cards and more devastating cards, more problem cards as we go. So for an example right here, reveal the old one in the lowest number hex and draw 6 cards for its movement, which the movement is done with these cards, because there's a number up top and there's a direction. There's a little counter on the board that shows, there's a little compass telling you, okay, which way do they go? So for an example, this is a 2. right? So this is a 2. Now, of course, the minions will move in the direction of the nearest port or farm. And of course, sometimes you've got to worry about if they're equidistant from 2 different players, or basically just 2 locations. Then this little directional circle kind of indicates, okay, so where are they going to go? So, hey, Viper Dave's popping in. Hiya, Viper Dave. So, let's see, what was Ghost saying? Come in with a character, do some damage. Yeah, right. And you score the XP, of course. That's a famous line. That's a famous way to approach stuff. But, like I said, it's cool that in this game that everybody who takes part in beating on a particular creature or what have you gets to share in the victory points when it's finally defeated. I thought that's pretty cool. Okay, so eventually what you're going to do is you're going to continue battling the minions. You're going to try to protect your farms. You're going to try to protect the available resources that are still on the map. You're going to be trying to lay rail lines to get further into the interior, into the outback. Would that be the outlier? It's the outback, so how is that the interior, right? So anyway, so you're going to continue doing that until you reach 53 on the time track. And at that point, as long as basically as long as everybody's still in the game, you're going to tally up your victory points. Now remember, if any of the minions ever come and basically destroy a port, game's going to end right there. You're going to tally up your victory points as well. So that pretty much in essence is how you play AuZtralia. Components are really nice. Artwork's pretty decent. Like I said, the zombie thing, I don't get it. I don't get why we've got zombies in a Lovecraft game, but I don't know. The artwork on the cards is pretty good. There's tons of replayability. Cardstock is a little thin, but nothing terrible. But of course, you're probably going to play this quite a bit, so you would be sleeving these cards. They're just standard cards, playing card size. So, anywho, what do I think of AuZtralia? I like it. I think it's actually really well done. To me, okay, so I don't play a lot of Martin Wallace stuff, but usually when I have played Martin Wallace designs, there tends to be something mechanically, system-wise, that leaves me scratching my head. The Doctor Who card game from Cubicle 7 is a great example. Mechanically, there's like a point where you're kind of like, what? And it's kind of like that with just about all of his designs. I didn't run across that in AuZtralia. Now, I know there are people who are going to be like, oh, come on, seriously, really? Wargame Wednesday, it's AuZtralia? Well, I mean, we can sit here and just look at traditional Hex Encounter games every Wednesday, but that's never going to draw new players in to wargaming. Something like AuZtralia actually will. I like the timing mechanism. I think that's pretty cool. I like where it's like, I can do as much as I want to do, and then I get to the point where I gotta like lay off. I gotta back off. I like the fact that you can't just continually do the same things. Like, oh, I'm gonna keep mining and I'm gonna get all the resources on the map. Ha ha ha. Well, you've got the little cubes you got to put down. Well, I mined already. I mined again. Well, if I mine, I'm gonna have to pay gold to do that mining. Is it gonna be worth it to me? So I like the juggling. One thing I'm not super keen on is the combat, because really there's nothing you're doing tactically or strategically outside of looking to see, oh well, these units do pretty good against, say, the temple, or these units do well against the loyalist cultists. and these don't. So you're gonna go kind of deciding, well, okay, so I'll send these units, I'll keep these units in the barracks and stuff like that. It's about all that's going on. You're not actually, you know, leading your forces or anything like that, which is fine. It's abstracted. It's okay. I like the fact that you're kind of pushing your luck, that it's not, well, we're rolling some dice, we get one combat result, and that's the end of the battle. Battle can kind of keep going on. So I like that as well. So in the end, all in all, I definitely give AuZtralia an 8.9. It's that good. I think it is that good. Plus, it's got Lovecraft going for it. So I say for, you know, just regular gamers, just, you know, I'm not saying casual gamers. I'm talking about gamers, just maybe not war gamers. I think this will really appeal to them. War gamers, I think, looking for something a little lighter, looking for something that's a little bit different, a little Euro-ish, without being super puzzly Euro. I think this is a really, really good fit. So once again, as I mentioned, AuZtralia is for 1 to 4 players. Something else I should point out, the solitaire aspect is actually kind of cool. And I like the fact that for a 2-player game, use different cards as well. There's different cards for solo, different cards for 2-player game. So, and there's tons of replayability. So it's for 1 to 4 players, ages 13 and up. Plays in, I gotta be honest, about 90 minutes is what we were finding. Although it's supposed to be $30 to $120, and the MSRP is $69.95. Right. Looks like we got a long show tonight again. We'll wrap up in just a little bit because we're actually just taking a first look at Korea 1950 from the Platoon Commander series. It's not big, but as I always like to mention, yes, here it comes. Get ready. Please, if you like the Gaming Gang, if you dig the Daily Dope, consider supporting Lil Bub's Big Fund at the American Society for the Prevention of Cruelty to Animals. Yes, that's right. I was going to actually share the little video that cracks me up all the time with Lil Bub, but I will not because we're already over an hour into the show. But I do point this out because, as I keep saying, started it up this month. The Gaming Gang's no longer for profit, which actually, I just saw that, what is it, Geek Game Boy or whatever is starting his another Kickstarter for season 7 or whatever. Sort of like, wow, dude, don't you dip your hand in the pocket of the publishers enough? Now you gotta go to Kickstarter again. Anyway, yeah, he's a shill. I'll rip on that guy as much as I can anytime. But anyway, talking about the charity, talking about the fund. Yeah, just going off on a tangent. 100% of all funds that are raised by Lil Bub's Big Fund is actually granted out to organizations that help special needs animals who are awaiting adoption, who are awaiting to find their forever homes. So I don't sit there and I'm not like, hey, go to my Patreon, give me money. Nope, I just would rather say, hey, if you go donate a couple of bucks. I mean, I'm not telling people you got to go donate a bunch of money. Do some good. You'll feel better. And obviously enough, if you are, happy thoughts. Yeah, I got happy thoughts. Just when I see stuff like that, I'm like, really? I know what this guy charges publishers for his different stuff. That's what kind of irritates. You know, if I didn't know that, then I really wouldn't care. But it's sort of like, it's like he's making money off Kickstarter videos. He's making money off of publishers, because he's not one of these guys who does stuff for free, right? I don't charge anybody for these reviews. They just have to send a review copy. That's all. So, yeah, it's kind of like, and I love his line where it's like, oh, high quality video reviews. And it's sort of like, here, let me jump back. His actual video looks almost no different than this. And I'm doing a live stream. Right? I'm doing a live stream here. High quality reviews. And get out of here. Yeah, shill. Anywho, so I was gonna say, if you've been following the show, I mentioned that I went to lilbub.com. They're having a special sale. The sale runs till tomorrow. It's like 40 to 80% off almost everything in the Lil Bub store because they have to I guess they're changing warehousing. So I got my package today. So I got my Lil Bub mug. Yep. You'll see me drinking from my Lil Bub mug very shortly. Although unfortunately the mug I really wanted to get, I procrastinated, I'll be the first to admit. I let a couple of days go by when I saw the sale was going on. It was a little bit bigger, a little bigger mug. But this is actually like China, a China mug. This is not a it's not plastic. So this is really, really nice. So I got my mug, and then I was like, oh, they've got like a bigger stuffed little bub, right? Because I've got my Lil Whiz bub, which I was like, oh, as soon as I saw Lil Whiz bub, I'm like, oh, I gotta get this. So so I got my mug. I got my cool little thank you card. So here's a little bub. I guess little bub loves yogurt. I had never even considered feeding my cats yogurt. So yeah, so there's like a little thank you on the back there. So I thought that was funny. That was kind of cool. So anyway, so like I said, there was a. I was like, yeah. So there's a bigger like stuffed little bub, right? Plush bub. So I'm like, oh, okay. Well, I'll order that. And I think it was normally. Well, the mug, this China mug is like normally $20. I think the bigger plush little bub was like usually 24. And I got both together with shipping for like 32, and it was like $5 shipping. Well, here's the little bub that I didn't realize was gonna be the size of the actual cat. So see, I can sit just like the owner does, a little bub like that, right? So, but I thought I was hysterical. So just wanted to point out, and of course, purchases from the Lil Bub store, which will be closed for about a month, starting the 15th. Of course, proceeds go towards the Lil Bub's Big Fund, as well as helps generate Halo pet food donations to shelters. And I believe Lil Bub has raised something like $500,000 for animals and like 5 million bowls of pet food. All right, so what's happening the rest of the week? Tomorrow's show, I don't know. I honestly do not know. There's supposed to be a bunch of RPG stuff in the mail heading towards me. I have not gotten it yet. I have not finished reading Coriolis Lost Emissary. No review of that. I might actually share the. I do a review of the PDF of the adventure that I'm running for the kids, for the gang, I guess I'll say, on Saturday. I might do that. It's an old school. Yeah, I might just kind of talk about that. Who knows? So, but there will be some sort of RPG coverage. There'll be news tomorrow too. Then on Friday's show, I will be reviewing Master of Wills from Stormcrest Games. Yes, yes, yes. All right. So, as promised, as a special bonus, because I love the war gamers out there. I don't want them to feel like they're getting cheated out of wargame coverage tonight. Let me grab where do we have one? So rather than sit here and be breaking down AuZtralia, which is all set up, I'm just gonna lay this on top. So it's probably got crap all over it from the cats. Yeah, it does. But there we go. Anywho, let's be taking a look at Mark H. Walker's Platoon Commander Korea 1950 from Tiny Battle Publishing. It is designed by the aforementioned Mark H. Walker. It is from Tiny Battle Publishing, who is one of our sponsors tonight. That's right, it is Flying Pig Games and Tiny Battle Publishing. Artwork is provided by Christian Sperling. Games for 2 players. Plays in around 2 hours. I think there are various scenarios in this as well. This does carry an MSRP of $28. You can currently get it for $24. And you can grab the print and play over at Wargame Vault for $10. Now, if you are going to get the print and play, by all means, Wargame Vault is part of One Bookshelf, of which the Gaming Gang is an affiliate. So if you go to thegaminggang.com, click on one of our drive-through banners, any one of them, and then go to Wargame Vault from that site, we'll actually get a small portion of that sale. And it all adds up. It really does. Okay, so let's jump on over to the other camera. Thankfully, I don't have to jump up and really do any kind of refocusing or anything like that. We should be pretty good. Let's get this on out. It doesn't look like there's tons for us to be taking a look at, but I showed off Platoon Commander Deluxe, or it's Deluxe Platoon Commander, I should say. The Battle of Kursk last week, and it is a big box game. It is from Flying Pig Games, and I know folks were kind of like, well, I'm not familiar with this Platoon Commander system. Well, there are releases over on Tiny Battle Publishing for Platoon Commander, and this is one of them. Sticks and Stones is another one, which is kind of like a, I believe it's kind of like a 1985-ish kind of World War III. And there's also the Indian-Pakistani War, which I believe is another Platoon Commander. So we've got the rule book here. Not a ton to have to dig through. So we've got the general concepts. I do believe as far as like range and things like that, it's all kind of color-coded. So outline of play, aid and focus, focus markers, aid markers, fire combats, wire-guided missiles, opportunity fire, moving fire, flanking fire, multiple attacking units. Talking about movement here. Line of sight, close assault, and fire support. Then we've got module-specific rules. So I guess overall, these are pretty much the general rules for the system. So we've got some specific rules here. We've got indirect fire, guerrilla units, the American Order of Battle, North Korean People's Army Order of Battle. So we've got some scenarios too. So it's not just one scenario. So we've got Task Force Smith, Tejan. I'm not even going to try to pronounce that. Kochiwan and Task Force Lynch. So all these scenarios are set in 1950. So from July through September. So we've got 4 scenarios. So that's in the book there. All right, so we got a player aid. So we've got terrain effects, showing us different kinds of terrain. Then we've got fire results, close assault. There we go. Range color explanation: black, green. I guess it's probably supposed to be kind of yellow, but it's kind of a mustard, red, and blue. So black has to be right next to you. So, yeah. We got a sheet of counters here, and these have been cut really nicely. I just was barely picking them up, and they were popping on out. So we've got some armor, we've got infantry. Now, one thing I have noticed, at least with the iconography for the Platoon Commander series, is they'll show like side views of the armor units, but here I'll see, like, for an example, we got mortar units, we got infantry. We just see the NATO iconography for that. Now, in the Deluxe Platoon Commander, the Battle of Kursk, it's got the like the NATO iconography, as well as an image of the infantry. So I thought that was kind of cool how they did that. Of course, this is a much lower cost game here, so these are dual-sided as well. Very nicely done. Cool. We've got a map. We're going to look at this little deck of cards in just a second. So we got a little paper map. So there's the Teikon, Suchan, Owan. Looks like this is our kind of our turn track here. Showing initiative. All right, so let's take a look at these cards real quickly. So usually a lot of the Flying Pig and Tiny Battle Publishing releases, even if they're kind of a little more standard hex and counter war games, a lot of times there's cards. Cards add a lot of replayability, quite a bit of randomness into the proceedings as well. So looks like they're all one deck. So we see they're divided by the U.S. and allies, and then the communist, capitalist pig. We got flexible. They're everywhere. Double time, op fire. Normally, a lot of times you'll get, each player will only get maybe like 1 or 2 cards through the whole game. It's not as if these are like card-driven games. So a lot of times you'll have a card that you're gonna kind of keep in your back pocket before unleashing it on your adversary. So, fire support. Hell no! Op fire. Fire support. So a lot of different stuff here. And of course, depending on what side you happen to be playing, what you're able to do with it. Nice. And you know what? Okay, so I gotta be honest. So we were looking at 2 games, right? I gotta be honest. The card stock for Tiny Battle Publishing for Korea 1950, this card stock's actually a little bit nicer than the Stronghold Games. So, hey, I gave AuZtralia a 9 for crying out loud, okay? You know, I really, really like it. Dude just had to point out that, you know, card stock's a little thin. But hey, you know what? There's penny sleeves. Go buy penny sleeves. They're not that difficult. Please tell me there's a better dead than red card. Let's see. I'm gonna say no. There probably is not. Out of ammo. They're everywhere. Support. Don't think so. We're running out of cards. No, there is no. Well, there's bug out. There is no better dead than red card. I guess you're just gonna have to email Mark H. Walker. So what's going on, Mark? Right, so we got the little deck of cards. What were there? About 20 cards here, maybe. We got the little map. Got the very cool, very nicely detailed counters. And I swear, the counter sheets are a little bit thicker than I recall them being. Now, I reviewed my good friend Herman Lutman's Invaders from Dimension X, which I just got the code for Steam because that's available for PC. I think it's iOS and Android too it's out for. And I remember I had commented that, I thought the counter sheet was a little thin. And, you know, Mark Walker's one of these people. I talk to Mark at Origins every year. You know, we email back and forth and stuff. So, you know, if he disagrees with me on something, he's going to disagree with me on something. He's not going to let it slide. So he was kind of like, I don't know, man. I thought those counters were fine. And of course, Herman was like, yeah, I thought the counters were fine too. And I was like, oh, for crying out loud, I really like the game. All I said was, I think the counters could have been a little bit thicker. It's like, come on. Anywho, so I will have a review of Korea 1950 This is really a game I'll bust out with Cameron to play. Elliot doesn't do war games for the most part. He really doesn't. So yeah, it'd be nice if I just switch the camera back over rather than you looking at a, you know, just like a brown. Why did I say brown? A blue, it's not even a blanket really. That's got cat hair on it. Yeah, here, I'll just talk in a little corner while you take a look at that. All right, so pretty long show today. Cool, very nice. So that's it for today's show. As I mentioned, tomorrow's show will be somehow role-playing game related. Not sure what yet. I'll figure something out. But anyway, when you're not watching videos on the Gaming Gang channel, be sure to visit thegaminggang.com for all the latest in gaming news, reviews, comics, movies, TV. Come on, by now you know the drill. Get your geek on at thegaminggang.com. I just glanced and saw that we did have a little bit of drop frames, but not much. Not even 1%. But yeah, thankfully put that to bed early on. That would have been terrible, losing about half the frames I tried to stream earlier on. Anywho, enjoy the rest of your Thursday. Enjoy the rest of your Wednesday. Tomorrow is Thursday. I will be back. And of course, until then, thank you very much for watching. Thanks again for watching The Daily Dope, presented by The Gaming Gang. If you like this episode, be sure to give it a quick thumbs up. And if you dig the channel, please subscribe. If you'd like to check out our previous episode, click right here. And if you want to check out a somewhat randomly selected episode, give a click right down here. It'll be like opening a box of Cracker Jacks. You just don't know what you'll get. Once again, thanks for watching, and I'm Jeff McAleer.